Oh, well, goodness. I look a disaster. We will just wait a moment until people show up. I'm giving you a sensible hoodie with a scarf around my neck, protecting the instrument. Protecting the instrument as we do in the theater, the gift. So hello, welcome to our monthly chat. You all know who I am. This is my friend Shari. Before she talks about herself, because a lot of you don't know her, she needs to introduce. She's not just some crazy lunatic woman I partnered up with. Although I do like to have Q&As. I should have Q&As with complete strangers on Facebook.
That would be fun.
So you hear how I sound like that goddess of the screen, Kathleen Turner. Many of you are aware that I moved to Denver, excuse me, about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. So I get to Denver, I'm adjusting to the altitude out there. I'm dealing with like altitude sickness, my asthma is killing me. I do have asthma, it never bothers me anymore, until recently. So I'm in Denver, adjusting like you do. Then, what do I have to do but get on a plane and come back to New York? Now let me explain something. In Denver, it's been 65 degrees for the past week while I was there, and it was beautiful, and it was nice. You get on a plane in Denver, and you fly when you're a little congested. I understood why the babies scream. It's the first time my ears have ever clogged like that.
Yeah.
I wanted to punch the people next to me.
Yeah.
I couldn't hear anything. It was awful. I was doing this and like doing everything I could to try to pop. It hurt. I did not understand that it physically hurt like that.
Oh, it hurts.
It was hell.
Yeah.
So we land. What's the temperature in New York? But 0. So to go from 65 degrees to 0 to a wind chill of like -15, -20 while I'm here all weekend was not pleasant, kids. It wasn't good. So I have a bit of a sinus infection and a cough right now. So tonight, our unofficial sponsors, aside from Evenflow, thank you Evenflow for making this happen.
Oh, yeah.
Traditional medicinals, Ricola, and Kleenex. So it's real pleasant. So if I scoot away like this, it just means I'm probably going to blow my nose. So this is called real life. You know what? You do what you can. I'm in town once this month. We need to do our Q&A for you people.
So committed. So
very committed. Very committed. Listen.
So dedicated.
So, Shari, why don't you talk about yourself?
Oh, I
Tell
wish
the
you were
people.
feeling better.
Tell them.
Poor
I actually
Jamie.
feel okay. There's just, you know, I'm going to be completely honest here. You know when you get so dried out with your sinuses, you get nosebleeds?
Yeah.
It's not cute to get a nosebleed at a Broadway show. Multiple times. So, continue, please.
Oh, poor Jamie. Well, I don't have as much of an exciting introduction as Jamie, but I am not feeling sick, so that's a good thing. My name is Shari Criso. Many of you have seen me here with Jamie and in other places as well. But for those of you who have never met me before, I'll give you a little bit about my background so that you know I'm not a crazy person off the street that Jamie just found.
No, she's a crazy person off the internet I met years ago.
That's right.
That's even better.
Off the street. I'm off
I didn't meet her at Forever 21. I met her on Twitter.
It's the truth. It's the truth. So I've been taking care of expecting moms and new moms and dads for 25 years. I was a labor and delivery nurse for many years. I am a certified nurse midwife. I had my own practice for many years. I delivered 600 babies. I had a specialty retail store, which is the first time I met Jamie, is when he came to my store in New Jersey, where I had a live web TV show for several years called My Baby Experts, and many of you know me from that. I'm also an international board certified lactation consultant, and I work with Evenflow Feeding, helping them to develop their new advanced double electric breast pump. And Jamie and I have been friends
For a
long time.
And we started doing this last year, and it was just a blast.
It has been.
So why not keep it going this year as well?
With all that, what I want to say is that, the information that you're going to hear tonight is obviously from a lot of years of experience. I hope to answer as many questions as I can. You guys have been amazing coming and asking me questions, and last time we did questions on pretty much everything. Everything from labor and birth to breastfeeding to everything.
Because sometimes we do an extra hour after this. Right now that's debatable.
It's iffy.
Because
he needs to rest.
I don't know. I need to sleep.
Yeah.
I fly back to Denver tomorrow, and the thought of getting on a plane again makes me want to Amtrak it.
It can actually be dangerous,
Well, I know I can take the what is it, the Afrin? They say that's a good thing to do when you fly and you're congested. You do it right before you take off, and then when you're in the air.
Yeah.
But I don't like doing stuff like that.
You
I
just
hate
have
that
to
kind
be
of medicine.
really careful with those ears because you could get a ruptured eardrum from going up in the altitude. So you might just have to stay for a couple days with us here. You got your room. You can stay.
But the movers get there on
That's
Wednesday.
true. That's true. Yeah. So we're really excited to be here with you guys tonight. Last month, I can't believe it's been a month already. That was January 20th, the last time we were together.
Oh my God.
Already, right? So last month was unbelievable. So much fun.
So much
we just
fun.
didn't want to stop.
We did it for what, 2.5 hours?
It was like at least
It was
2.5
a long
hours.
time.
Yeah, it was a really long time.
It was great.
But it was fabulous.
So since I'm congested in a special way, let's talk. 'Tis the season.
Yes.
If you're sick, you're dealing with the flu, you're dealing with just general illness. Should you have any concern about nursing or pumping and like any kind of spread through?
Such a good question. This one keeps coming through. Not just about being sick, but about medications, about anything having to do with being ill and nursing your baby. He's going to go off camera a little. Anything about being sick and nursing your baby. Should you stop breastfeeding? Not just about the medications, but about the illness itself. You know, Jamie's got respiratory issues and sinus infections. A lot of people right now have stomach flus that are going around. And so what I want to say is that when you are sick, it is especially important to continue breastfeeding. So anybody who's telling you need to stop breastfeeding while you're sick, that your baby's going to get sick if you breastfeed, that's the opposite of what you actually want to do. And the reason for that is when you breastfeed, and when you're sick, your body's making antibodies to the specific illness that you have. So whatever that virus is that you're ill with, your body's making antibodies, and those antibodies are going directly into your milk and directly into your baby, which means that that's going to help your baby from contracting that virus that you may be experiencing. And I mean, I know like personally, when Jade, who's now 14, when she was a baby, she was like 3 months old, and I had the flu so bad. I was so sick with fever, could not get out of bed. Joe got the flu. So the two of us were like so sick, laying in bed, and here we had with this 3-month-old. There was nothing we could do except like lay her in the bed with us and just let her nurse because I couldn't even move. Lucky the baby's wanting to be held, the new baby. And I was just so worried that she was going to get sick. And the thing was that she just kept nursing away and she never got it. And it was because she was nursing a lot. So that is the absolute wrong advice to stop breastfeeding. If you're sick and you're getting medications and your physician is telling you that you need to pump and dump or not breastfeed, for take a few days and don't breastfeed while you take this medication, there are almost no medications that actually are contraindicated for breastfeeding. And if they are, they shouldn't be giving them to you as a breastfeeding mom. There's always some kind of an alternative. That being said, even though the medication might be safe for breastfeeding, meaning your baby's not going to get sick from drinking the milk, decongestants can actually dry up your milk. So you got to be really careful when taking decongestants because that could actually decrease your supply.
Oh.
And so as we're talking about like, you know, congestion and colds and
I would like to decrease this supply right now.
Well, that's exactly what it does, right? So it decreases
it
that
dries
supply.
you out.
It dries you up. And so it dries up your milk too. And so you got to be real careful with decongestants.
What a lovely thought. So we got a lot of questions online. So I'm going to go through a few. We did not get everyone's names. I apologize. Normally I give you Laura Beth in Des Moines asked. We didn't do that this time. We're horrible humans. So let's talk about paste bottle feeding.
That was a question that a few people had. It wasn't just one. So we're kind of like answering a lot of people's questions right now. First of all, what is paste bottle feeding? When you're pumping or you're formula feeding or whatever you're doing to feed your baby from a bottle, and this is mostly it's really for all babies. It's a way of feeding your baby from a bottle that helps to simulate what you're doing with the breast so that you're not overfeeding your baby. Okay? So there's some simple things that you can do when you're feeding with your baby with a bottle beyond just like having the right flow, beyond having, you know, the type of nipple and all that. We're talking about the way that you're feeding, not what you're feeding. And what that is you want to let the baby control the feeding. And that even means control the feeding as far as like how often they want to eat based on their schedule. The way they would do when they're breastfeeding, they may not be able to stick to an exact schedule. And so this is something that you would want to talk to your care provider about, or your partner, whoever's feeding the baby, to really watch for the baby's cues of hunger to feed the baby as the baby would if the baby was breastfeeding. Some other things that you can do when you're pace bottle feeding is to hold your baby more upright. So they can actually control.
Oh, sure.
Okay, you don't want to lay them flat down, and that too is going to help to prevent ear infections as well. Sitting your baby up more, so they're in a more upright position, will help with pace bottle feeding. Other things, this is important. Another thing that, when you're breastfeeding, you're switching sides. When you're bottle feeding, the baby could always be held in the same position, and for eye contact and for just that variety, to be able to switch the baby from side to side. And
I never even thought about that.
Hey, think about it, because they're going from side to side, and so the way that they're actually looking at you, the way that they're interacting with you is different from each side. So if the baby is constantly being fed only on, from one position, it's not going to stimulate the same thing as what they would be doing with breastfeeding. There is also the idea that they don't have to finish everything that's in the bottle. You want to slow them down. The feedings shouldn't be that quick where it's just like they're guzzling it. If you see milk pouring out of the side of your baby's mouth or down their chin, it's going too fast. You need to slow it down. You need to stop them frequently, burp them, and just watch. Overall, what you're doing basically is you're watching the baby, and you are allowing the baby to control the feeding, take breaks, the way that they do with the breast. Otherwise, you're just pouring it down their throat. It's gonna go right down, and they're gonna be overfed. And that's the one thing that we want to avoid. When they look at like studies that talk about like obesity and bottle feeding, those studies show the increased risk of obesity comes not just with formula in a bottle, but breast milk in a bottle as well. So bottle feeding in general is linked to obesity, and that's because of overfeeding.
And I think this is a perfect segue into this.
Yep.
We got props tonight.
Everybody likes props.
We usually talk about this every time, so we're always prepared. Let's talk about day to day, from day one, the actual amount that they should be eating at a feeding.
Yep.
And I'm going to get up so I can hold it close.
Well, let's get the little balls too,
Yeah.
right? This is something we go over pretty much each time, but each time we have new people, and each time, it's such an important piece of information that just this alone can make a huge difference. So what I'm going to show you right now is, when the misperception that's out there of how much a baby actually eats. When you sit there and you look at these like 8-ounce bottles, and you're looking at formula counterparts where they are eating 6, 7, 8, 9 ounces of formula, that's not the same with breast milk. And so it's very important to see what are the normal quantities for a breastfed baby. And I'm going to show that to you with this little ball. This right here is the baby's stomach capacity. And
it's a marble.
The size of a marble. That's the baby's size of the baby's belly on day 1. So when they first come out, when they're first born, that's about the size of it. And they cannot stretch it more than that. That's why you'll see them spitting up and vomiting if you keep feeding them more with a bottle, because they cannot stretch it. In a bottle, this is what it looks like.
Day 1.
Okay.
It doesn't even cover
That's
the bottom
per
of the
feeding.
bottle.
That's per feeding with both sides.
Per feeding. Okay.
It might not even be both sides.
Like, that ain't nothing.
We're talking about like a teaspoon, if that. Okay. Yeah. And so if your baby's eating for when the nurses come in and they're like, do 20 minutes on each side, this is what they're getting in a full 20 minutes because they're getting it in the first few minutes, and then the rest of the time they're basically just sucking. All right, that's how much they're actually eating. This one right here, this is day 3.
It's a beer pong ball.
And it looks like, that's the size of your baby's belly on day 3. That's about when your milk's first starting to transition, meaning it's gone from colostrum into milk. Your milk might not fully be in yet, but it's starting to turn into more mature milk. It's about the time when you're coming home, if from the hospital, and that's what it looks
Day
like
3.
inside of a bottle.
It's about ½ an ounce.
Okay, this is really shocking for people.
Yeah. Not a lot.
No.
Not a lot.
Not a lot at all. And here's day 10.
Day 10. You got your Easter egg.
Okay, that's the size of a baby's belly around day 10. Day 10, 2 weeks, and in a bottle, it's about 1.5 ounces.
Day 10.
1.5 ounces. That's per feeding, and that's about every 2 to 3 hours. Pretty much like 2 hours during the day, 3 hours at night. That's how much a baby's eating. And then once the baby hits, you know, somewhere around 3 months or so, they start to eat full amounts of feeding. Now, this is an average amount because obviously all babies are going to eat different amounts, and they're going to eat different amounts at different times of the day. But an average typical amount for a breastfed baby, and this lasts for the entire year, is about 4 ounces per feeding. And that's what it looks like.
Forever.
Okay, so if you're pumping, and this drives me crazy. People will write to me and they'll say, I'm pumping, but I'm only getting like, you know, 3 ounces from one side, and then I'm only getting about 2 from the other. How can I increase my supply?
That's good.
And I'm like, increase your supply. That's fabulous. 4 or 5 ounces at a pumping session. Just because you can pump more than that, and some moms can, and they do, and that's a whole other topic, which is oversupply. Pumping, you know, 3 ounces, 4 ounces is actually a really good amount. And actually, it might be less than what your baby's eating because the pump will always get out less than what the baby does. So if you're struggling with milk supply and you're pumping and you're only getting a certain amount, you might just want to substitute that with like an extra pumping. You know, so like say your baby's eating 8 times in a 24-hour, you can feed or pump 9 times, meaning maybe you wake up once during the night to do an extra pumping, or while you're at work, do 1 extra pumping than what your baby's eating. The best way to do it, I think, the easiest way to do it, is first thing in the morning. If you're missing some extra milk for work, where you're like, I'm not bringing home enough for the baby, first thing in the morning when your milk supply is the fullest, you have the most amount of milk, latch your baby onto one side and put the pump on the other, and try to feed your baby exclusively from one side while you pump the other breast, because there is nothing like a baby sucking to get your milk to let down. It's so great. I used to pump fantastic like that. So.
And there's nothing like online dating to get you let down in other ways. So I went there for a moment. Let's actually talk.
Did you like our props? Did they like our props?
We love props. And I love a Ricola. So let's talk now, since we're just talking about pumping, about exclusive pumping. You know, tips for moms who will be exclusively pumping. You know, what they should be doing to help, what they should look for in a pump, you know, etc.
So for exclusively pumping moms, you really want to make sure that you're getting a very good quality pump that's going to maintain your milk supply, get your milk out, do it comfortably, and get it out as fast as possible. You obviously want a double electric pump. A few things that I would look for is making sure that the pump has multiple settings so that you can control your speed and suction separately. Okay, and why is that important, especially if you're exclusively pumping, is you want to try to empty the breast, and the best way to empty the breast is to be able to stimulate multiple letdowns.
I was just writing that right now. Somebody was asking, how do you get a letdown while you're pumping? And I was like, we need to cover multiple letdowns.
Okay, so multiple
letdowns. Again, online dating.
It's the only time you really want multiple letdowns in your life. Multiple letdowns. What does that mean? Everybody knows that the breast lets down when the baby starts to eat. What that means is that the baby starts to suck, hormones release from the brain, it goes to the breast releases, and milk starts to pour. Okay, you'll see that when you're pumping, or you'll see that when you're nursing and you'll hear your baby start swallowing. But that doesn't just happen one time during a session. It starts to happen, and if you think about your baby breastfeeding, you'll know what I'm talking about. Your baby's nursing, you hear swallowing, then all of a sudden, baby starts to take a break, it starts to slow down, they start to suck a little bit faster. They're still sucking hard, but they start sucking a little faster, and all of a sudden, it starts to gulp again, They just stimulated a second letdown. Obviously, you didn't need to know how to do it. The baby instinctively knows how to do that with the breast. With the pump, you need to be able to kind of do the same thing. So how do you do that? Let's show it on a real pump, because I think it's going to be easiest. Okay, so let's get rid of these for a second, because I think it'll be easier. On this pump, this is the even flow, okay? There are buttons here for speed, and there are buttons here for suction. And there's multiple settings. That means that there are 4 speeds and 8 suction levels. And what you're trying to do is, when you first start pumping, you're going to turn your speed. You want the speed up really fast and the suction kind of down low. So it's not really hard. It's just quick, fast sucking. as soon as you start to see the milk start to flow, you're going to turn your speed down and your suction up, okay? And this is important. You turn your suction up to the point where it is the most comfortable. So you don't want it all the way up.
Pumping should not hurt.
Exactly. And in fact, one of the things that helps to increase your milk to let down and your milk to flow is comfort. So when you start putting that, like people think they're going to like rip the milk out of their breast, that they're going to turn the suction as high up as they can and that's going to make it better. It's actually not the case. The more comfortable the suction level, the more comfortable the flange fit, the more comfortable the flange is, like, you know, soft silicone or whatever it is, that's going to help your milk to flow way better than turning your suction all the way up. So that's for the first letdown. Now, with the second or the third or the fourth letdown, what you want to do is you want to actually decrease your speed, okay? I mean, increase your speed whilst keeping your suction levels high. So you're not going back down on your suction. You're keeping your suction where it is. You're just going a little faster for a few minutes. You turn up the speed, it starts to suck a little faster, you get the letdown again, you decrease the speed again, and you've got another letdown. It starts to slow down again, you increase your speed, you see the milk start to flow, you decrease your speed again. And this will help you to have multiple letdowns during one session. The problem is that most of the pumps on the market don't have that feature.
Yeah.
So it's like you push a button and it does it for you. But what it's doing for you is it's inversely changing it so that when you push that button, the speed increases, but the suction goes back down. That's not going to get you a second letdown. That's not going to get you a third letdown.
Phase 1 and phase 2 don't work.
They don't. It's multi-phase is what you need. You don't need 2-stage or 2-phase. You need multiple phases, multiple stages, multiple dials to be able to control it yourself. And then you get to kind of know like what works for you. Yeah. And you're like, oh, number 4, number 2, number 4, number 2.
You could even put like a gold star or something
totally
on
could.
it.
But it's
you
so,
could put a sticker.
It's so, I mean, once you learn it, it's so easy. It's just, you know, but being able to do that, and people just don't know that that's important.
Yeah, I didn't. I'm not nursing or pumping, but, you know. Let's really, really quick talk about this because we're talking about exclusively pumping and whatnot. Mm-hmm. Like milk storage, you know, you can use bags, you can store in bottles, you can do whatever. But we showed this last time and people kind of lost their minds.
Yeah, it's
a
great,
little bit.
Right?
It's this new clip that Evenflo has come out with for the bags.
Yeah, so
and it's pretty great.
It's brand new. It's amazing. Evenflo Feeding makes awesome milk
Well, hi, Joe.
milk freezer bags that have these cute little sayings on here. I actually put a little milk inside a bag so you can see it. And so these are freezer bags. You can freeze inside of these. And you know, you want to use whatever you're going to use. It's really important that you use something that's specific for milk storage. Like you don't want to just go buy some Ziploc bags.
No.
You need to have something that's sterile inside so that it's clean for your milk. You want to follow the instructions really well. There are different ways to freeze milk and to store milk. And actually, the best way to store your milk is in the refrigerator because the less you do to it, the better. So if you could pump to have it for the next day, you don't want to keep freezing. You're better off using fresh milk, like you pump, and then the next day you feed that milk, and what's in the freezer is sort of like the backup supply. That's kind of a better way to do it. But if you are going to freeze, Evenflo just came up with this amazing system. And, oh, thank you. Yeah, I did that, didn't I? These are called the milk storage bag adapters, okay? And look at how fantastic this is. Okay, it's just this little thing, okay?
I mean, it almost looks like something you could demonstrate a Diva Cup with. Doot, 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 cervix. So it's this, okay?
Don't try that at home. Okay. And what you
So
do
hold on. Somebody's asking where the wine is. No, I'm not having wine at all. I'm actually having water.
Not tonight. Not tonight.
What has my life come to? Continue.
Okay, so the way this works is, what you're going to do is you take this little nifty thing and you're going to attach it directly onto your flange here, okay? The flange that goes up against your breast. I should actually use so that it would be connected to the pump like that, right? And then what you do is you stick this thing, I don't know if they can see me, you stick this thing right inside the bag, okay? And then these clips are on here that are super strong. Okay?
I'll show you. Is that on? Yeah.
Make sure.
Yeah. Look, I only played with this tonight for the first time to really like see how sturdy
And
it
nobody's
was.
like pulling on it, but you guys, you don't want to.
But just to be sure, you know, you're pumping into this.
Absolutely.
You don't want your milk to like spill all over the floor because then you think about your life choices, and that's a lot of wasted milk. So this is, I mean, I'm pulling on this,
And it's not.
and it's not going anywhere. It's great.
So it's clips right on like that. You're pumping directly into the bag. And then, just like Jamie was showing, it's really, really strong, so it's not going to pull up. But when you start to squeeze, it comes off easily. So it's like nice and tight, and then easy to release so that you're not spilling any of your milk. You squeeze the air out. That's all a different conversation. And then there you go.
Look at that.
I love
Are these
this
available
thing.
now?
They're available now, and I love this thing. They're fantastic. They work really, really well with even flow bags because it has a little hole in them like that. Yeah. I'm not sure. I'm sure the questions that are coming can use them with any bag, but I'm not sure.
You have to be able to have a hole and grip.
I think the little hole's really, really important. You have to be able to grip into that, or you're going to lose. You're going to have issues. So, yeah, fantastic new product.
Yeah, that's great.
Very innovative. As far as other things when it comes to like exclusive pumping, I think I want to say this. For anyone out there who is exclusively pumping for their baby right now, I just want to say that I honor you for that because it is super hard. It is not an easy thing to exclusively pump to feed your baby, and I know that it's easier to breastfeed. It's easier to formula feed. The hardest thing that you can choose is pumping, but you do it for a reason because you want to give your baby breast milk, and I really honor you for that. For all of you moms who are out there who are expecting and are choosing that as their first choice without really knowing what it's like to breastfeed, I will say that from all of my years of experience as a midwife, as a nurse, as a lactation consultant, as a mom myself, it probably would not be my first choice to go to that without first trying to breastfeed unless there was some particular reason that you're not doing it. Some people just choose, they just don't want to breastfeed, they don't like the idea of it, all that. That's fine. Just understand that it is not the easiest thing to do is to exclusively breastfeed. And I'm saying that with all honesty. And I know a lot of moms who actually do it, and it's fantastic. But it's not as easy as breastfeeding at the breast. Obviously, it's harder with the pump, and the pump's just as nice as these are. They're just not as cute as a baby attached to you.
No, it's a lot of work.
You're doing a lot of work.
So on top of living, it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
Hooray!
Hooray!
You're making big choices.
I mean, is it worth it?
Absolutely.
1,000%.
Feeding your baby anyway is worth it.
It's worth it.
Speaking of, does stress affect milk supply?
You know, my answer to that is going to be stress itself is not going to affect milk supply. Okay? And if you think about it, if that was actually true, you know, all mammals on Earth, okay, like we're nice and cozy in the house right now. And the animals are outside, and they're stressed being out in that cold, okay? And throughout time and throughout history, human beings have lived through some of the most challenging things and horrific things that you can imagine, from wars to famines to concentration camps and everything else in between. We have stress, but we don't necessarily have the kind of stress that people have endured and humans have survived, and milk is made, okay? So does stress affect milk supply directly? The answer is no. What does affect it is if you are stressed and you're not staying hydrated, if you are stressed and you're not feeding the baby, if you're stressed and you're not sleeping or resting or doing the things to keep yourself healthy, can that affect your milk supply? Yes. So it's sort of like a secondary effect of being stressed. If you are not feeding, the one thing that's going to make milk is to keep on feeding. So if your baby's eating, you're going to make milk.
Okay.
In most cases, if there's no other underlying issue for milk supply issues, like, you know, hormonal dysfunction, like thyroid issues or PCOS or something else that's causing the low milk supply. But just stress alone, not really.
Okay. Valid. Will my supply dip after my period starts again?
Yes. Not for everybody, but it's very common. When you get your period again, the estrogen levels are higher. Anything that changes your hormone levels, that messes around with your hormones, is going to impact your milk supply, especially estrogen. So with increased estrogen, your milk supply can drop. A lot of people are seeing low milk supply. They're seeing that they get their periods much sooner after having a baby than they used to. That's what I'm seeing, than years ago. So this is not an uncommon thing that people are getting their periods now when they breastfeed, which is an issue for milk supply because moms will see their supply diminishing a little bit with it. There are things you can do, whether it's drinking, like milk-made tea, or you're taking some more Milk Plus, or some fenugreek, or something to help with your milk supply, or just nursing more frequently. This is something that came up recently, is the concept of who was I talking? Oh, I was talking to a nurse practitioner. Okay, this just goes to show you, like, medical providers think they know. And then they start talking, and you're like, no, that's not accurate. So I had gone to see, and she was a student nurse practitioner. I had gone to see my nurse practitioner for a regular visit, and she was asking me what I do, and I was telling her, she's like, oh, and yes, and I breastfed. And she started to explain how, she had seen this mom, and the mom was talking about, like that she was feeding so frequently, and of course she didn't have enough milk because she was running out. She was feeding too frequently. And she told this mom this whole thing, and of course I'm sitting there like, that's completely wrong. So I said, well, the breast doesn't work that way, okay? The breast is like a leaky faucet. It's not like it fills up and then you drain it, and then you have to wait 2 hours for it to fill back up again. It's constantly making milk. So the idea that you're gonna you need to wait for it to fill back up before you can feed is actually going to have a negative or an opposite effect on your milk supply. But this was coming from a medical professional.
Interesting.
Because there's just not enough education out there. So feeding frequently is the answer.
I look distracted and uninterested. I'm actually very interested. No, I'm very interested. I have a sinus infection, so I just don't feel crazy right now. But I wanted to make sure we got this information to you because it's important. So I'm suffering like hell for all of you fine people right now. Congrats.
You look uninterested.
Next! Milk protein allergy.
No, let's look really uninterested.
Can you talk about it? And if it is worth breastfeeding though, because baby is gassy and miserable a week after cutting out dairy from the diet. So let's just talk about dairy, protein, whatnot, through breast milk, all of the shenanigans.
So, human babies weren't meant to drink cow's milk, as the rest of us aren't. Don't get me started on milk in general, but we weren't supposed to be drinking from a cow. So a lot of us as adults become lactose intolerant because we're not supposed to keep drinking milk beyond weaning age, okay? But as far as cow's milk it's a whole other story. We're not talking about the lactose in it, we're talking about the protein because it's made for baby cows. It's not made for human babies.
You don't see a fish jump out of the ocean and go sucking on a goat teat. You don't see it. We are the only species on the planet that is taken off of what we produce and thrown on something else.
There is no other animal on Earth that would actually do this.
No.
Feed milk of another species.
I want to know who the first person was that was like, I bet the stuff down in that cow udder is going to be mighty fine. I want to know what happened. Same as I want to know who was the first person to ever eat shrimp and lobster, because those are ocean roaches. And why did they were like, oh, I got this bug out of the ocean. I'm going to steam it up with butter and it's delicious. I really want to know who did that first. I really do.
A very hungry person.
Because they're delicious, but they're bugs.
A very hungry person. But
Next.
As far as the milk, cow's milk has a protein in it that's different than human milk protein. And so even if you're breastfeeding, so like just completely giving the baby human milk, what you drink, so if you eat or drink or take in any kind of cow's milk, that protein actually does go through your breast milk to the baby. And your baby may not have an allergy. And I really want to like I want to talk about the difference between when we talk about it, it's an allergy or an intolerance, okay? It's two very different things. Milk allergy is something that most people do not grow out of, that can last for the rest of their life. This is not what we're talking about in infancy. We're talking about an intolerance to cow's milk protein that they usually grow out of. And I would say that up to 50% of babies have this intolerance. So what that means is if you take in dairy, your baby's going to be gassy. You may see mucousy stool. You might even start to see some blood in the stool. This could be an irritation of their bowel because they're just not responding well to the dairy. That means you have to cut dairy out of your diet so that your baby stops getting that protein.
How long does that normally take for it to filter through?
It usually takes about 3 days, but it can take up to a week. And I think I know who asked this question because somebody asked me this on my Facebook wall this week. The doctor had told her to switch off of breast milk altogether, go onto formula, while the cow's milk protein comes out of her milk. And my recommendation to her was that I wouldn't do that. First of all, the formula, obviously, you don't want to use a cow's milk based formula because that just deprives.
No, there are goat milk formulas now.
So goat milk formula.
Yeah.
But even then, I still think that if you just decrease or take the cow's milk out of your diet, it may take a few days of fussiness and gassiness in the baby, but I still wouldn't dump out your breast milk and feed your baby formula instead. That's personally my opinion. I would continue to breastfeed. It's not causing damage to the baby, and with each day, that amount that they're getting is less and less and less.
Okay.
But at the same time, if you find out that your baby has a cow's milk intolerance and you pumped all this milk, that has to go.
Sure.
Okay, so let's make the distinguishing there. So if you froze all this milk where you were drinking or eating dairy and you just now found out or realized or identified that your baby can't have it, you have to get rid of that milk. That could be donating it too. You don't have to dump it.
There we go. Let's talk about, I'm going to mispronounce it again, lipase.
Lipase. No, you did good.
Hooray! Reading is fundamental. Can we talk about excess lipase? I've seen a few mamas comment about baby not liking the taste of their milk or milk spoiling.
And that's specific to frozen, defrosted milk. Okay? That face, I'm like, what happened?
I'm just reading.
Okay.
I'm reading.
All right, so this is not going to apply to fresh milk.
Okay.
Okay, so you're not going to have this issue. What lipase is it's an enzyme that some moms make that when you freeze your milk and then defrost it, it smells spoiled or tastes soapy. It has a strong odor or smell to it or taste to it where the baby could reject it and not want to drink it. So, but that won't happen when the milk is fresh. If you think about it, our bodies and nature never intended for us to pump milk out of our breasts and freeze it for later use.
Okay.
Like it just wasn't supposed to be that way. It was just supposed to be fed from the breast. So, this is just something that we've seen now that moms are pumping and freezing their milk. But that doesn't mean that you won't be able to. There is a way to treat that and to still store milk that your baby can have. If you feel like that's happening, what you want to do is after you pump your milk while it's still fresh, just pumped, you want to put it into a pan and you want to scald the milk. Okay, so that means you're just going
sorry. Sorry. On the camera, on the phone we're using, the comments froze up. So I needed to get on my other phone and watch.
Okay.
So I can keep track.
You want to scald the milk, which means put it into a pan, bring it to a boil really, really quickly where you see little bubbles like forming around the edges. And then as soon as it scalds, then you can go ahead and store it and freeze it away. Okay, but you don't want to put that hot milk into the freezer. You want to first put it into the refrigerator, let it cool down, and then freeze it. The scalding is going to take care of that extra lipase, and then when you go to defrost it, you shouldn't have that issue anymore.
Okay. If the comments have frozen, just hit refresh real quick and come right back. That should take care of it. Somebody said they heard of adding vanilla for high lipase. Is that even right?
I wouldn't do that. I don't know. I have not heard of
I
that.
don't know. That's like,
That's to take the flavor out,
Yeah.
I guess. But I mean, I don't know. I have not heard of that. Sorry.
I would be wary of putting an additive into breast milk like that.
I don't think I would do that.
Somebody also said, and it's what it froze up on, about all over-the-counter formulas, I think having dairy in them.
No.
They don't. There are other I think that's what the comment was. There are other formulas.
There are other formulas
that are based on other
and the majority of them are
bases.
going to have dairy in them. Some of them are going to have soy. I'm not a big advocate of soy formula at all. First of all, it's all made with GMO soy, and soy also has an estrogenic effect, which means that it causes estrogen. So, you know, women who are menopausal will take soy to help increase their estrogen levels. Not exactly the thing I want to do with a little baby, especially a little baby boy. I would go to, there's a really good report that I read a couple years ago back on cornucopia.org about soy formulas, and I really don't like soy formula at all. I highly recommend against it. The other thing is like the hyperallergenic Nutramigens, Alimentum, thing like that. So that's really your choices, you know, and then the goat's formula, which I'm not sure what the brand is that's making goat's milk formula. But you also want to stay away from making your own formula, because it really, unless you really know what you're doing, you can have it. It needs to be the right formulation.
Okay. We had a lot of questions about one side makes more than the other. So let's discuss that.
Your breasts are not even, okay? Just like your whole body is not symmetrical.
You know what? I'm going to go there, just like your boys aren't. One side is always bigger than the other. And yes, I went there. I'm going to go blow my nose while Shari finishes this conversation.
It's so true. It's true. Okay. Your body is not symmetrical. Your body is not symmetrical. And it may not be noticeable to every mom, but for almost all moms, you're going to have one side that I would consider the producer, and that's the side that's going to make more milk. For some people, it's like a really drastic difference where one side can make twice as much as the other side. I know that was the case for me. My right side made like double of what my left side made, and there's nothing you could really do about that to make them more even. A lot of people think if I pump more, if I keep feeding on one side, then I'm going to keep increasing that supply so they're more even. And that's not really true, because it has more to do with the capacity of that breast, and one side is going to make more. I read a statistic that said that 75% of all nursing moms make more milk on their right side than on their left side. I read that statistic. I don't even know where I read that or if that's been studied, but it said 75% of nursing moms make more milk on their right side than their left side. That was the case for me. My daughter, actually, my first one, completely rejected the left side by the time she was 4 months old. Little stinker. She was just like, this one it's just not worth the effort. And I would try to trick her to feeding on the left side. She didn't want it. I didn't realize, like, you know, at the time, like, if I don't keep on pumping it, it's going to dry up. And they are independent. One side can dry up while the other side can continue to produce. And from the time she was 4 months old till she weaned, which was over a year, I exclusively breastfed Jade on my right breast. That's why you have two. You don't really need one. You don't really need two of them. You can feed twins. You can feed triplets. You can feed one baby on one breast. And yeah, they make different amounts.
We've had a lot of people on here actually talk about forceful letdown and how painful that is. Any advice?
Well, one of the things that causes this forceful letdown is the oversupply that's there initially to begin with anyway. So you really have to look at, like, why is it so forceful? Why is it painful? What's happening? And oversupply, typically, you know, with the exception of some people who are just genetically, no matter what they do, they just make tons and tons and tons of milk. But for most people, it's coming from an over pumping a fear of not making enough, so they want to empty the breast after the feedings, so they're breastfeeding their baby, then they're pumping, and then they never get rid of that initial engorgement that starts off. They wind up with multiple breast infections and plugged ducts and all kinds of other things, including forceful letdown, which then the baby's gagging and choking on the milk.
Yep.
They wind up with issues like too much foremilk, which then can make the baby gassy. It can make the baby not gain weight as much. So here you can have oversupply, and you're actually dealing with your baby not gaining enough because the milk's not fatty enough because you're making too much of it. So, you know, typically I see more issues with too much milk than a little too little, like less milk. There's more issues for somebody who has an oversupply than somebody who has.
That was all over here too. Was oversupply.
Yeah, oversupply is like, and it causes so many problems, and a lot of times it's self-created. It's really self-created because people are just so worried about not having enough that they wind up pumping and pumping, and you know, even the physicians and you know, telling people to like, you know, breastfeed and then empty the breast out afterwards, because if you had a plugged duct or mastitis, keep the breast empty. What are you doing? You're telling the breast that you need more and more milk, which is actually what caused that breast infection probably in the first place. You need to make what your baby eats. You know, really, that's all you need to make. What your baby eats is what you need to produce. And if you're making a lot more than that, if you're feeding your baby and then you've got a freezer filled with like 3,000 ounces in your freezer, you've pumped too much. You know, unless you're donating that to somebody, there is just no reason for it.
And if you're only donating without any issues. Like if you're, I'm all for milk donation. I'm toward milk banks. I think it's a beautiful thing.
Yes.
But if you are overproducing and having to pump and pump and pump, and it's causing
mastitis,
some other stuff,
plugged ducts,
you got to take care of you first.
Absolutely.
You can't take care of anyone unless you take care of yourself.
Absolutely.
Asthma.
Words of wisdom.
Yes, it's very true. Oh, this is good. How to get dad involved or the other partner, because we use the word partner here, partners. How to get the partner involved if you are exclusively breastfeeding.
Oh, there's so many ways, especially if you're exclusively breastfeeding, to not exclusively pumping, you're saying breastfeeding. If you're exclusively breastfeeding, well, yeah, there's so many ways anyway. So when it comes to the feeding, and this is the thing, like, you know, everybody wants to feed the baby. So like, it's going to be the thing where like your partner, or mostly it's going to be probably your mother, your mother-in-law, your neighbor, whoever it is, everybody wants to feed the baby. So they all want you to pump your milk, and that's really your job. I mean, especially in the beginning, that's going to be the part that you need to do. But there's so many other things that the baby actually needs and that you need, and that's how they can help. And that's whether that's going to be burping the baby, bathing the baby, holding the baby so you can go take a nap, you know, washing your pump parts for you, taking care of everything like the laundry, making meals, feeding you so you can feed the baby. I mean, this whole idea of like they want to feed the baby, it's all nice for when it works for you and when it's working for the baby, but the truth is, as a breastfeeding mom, that's going to be your job, your position at the beginning, and it's really the best thing for your baby to be breastfeeding at the breast as much as possible.
And I would also like to say, I find it very, very good. If you are able to take a breastfeeding class prior to delivery, take your partner. When I worked at a birth education center, we tried to make sure husbands, wives, boyfriends, girlfriends, whatever, came in, because if we are having a child, you're tired as hell from delivery, you don't get any sleep, baby's up all night, you may not remember a lot of stuff.
Absolutely.
I went to class, and I'm going to help and remember things to help you, and you also have more of an awareness of what the nursing mom is dealing with.
That's one of my biggest pet peeves is when I hear about these breastfeeding classes that don't include dads or
You
partners.
have to.
It's ridiculous. Just because you're the one with the breast doesn't mean you're the only one feeding.
No.
They need to know. And when I used to teach my live breastfeeding classes, it was a requirement that your partner or somebody came with you. You had to have somebody to help you, whether that was going to be your mom.
Support is a key element.
It is a key element. It's very hard to do this on your own, and you will forget. Like Jamie just said, you're tired. You're not going to remember. And Breastfeeding is really not that complicated, but there are certain things, like certain techniques and certain things to look for, especially when I teach my class, that will really help. And your partner is going to have a view looking over your shoulder that you don't necessarily have.
You know what? That nose is fixed out.
Exactly. So you're like, oh, this hurts. And they go, oh, just adjust a little bit like that.
Well, do a little bit.
And if they don't know how to do it, it's not going to help. They're going to stand there like, you know, everybody wants to feel helpful, and your partner really does want to help. And this is especially going to happen with breastfeeding if they know what they're doing and what they're talking about. I'm going to plug my class right now because you know what? The truth is that a lot of people don't have the time, or don't have like a really good class that they could take, or their partners are working, or you know, you want to do something from home. And my online breastfeeding class, Simply Breastfeeding, is like the absolute best thing that you could do for yourself, for your partner, for your baby, to learn how to breastfeed before your baby comes. So you go right to my website, My Baby Experts. You can watch the entire class, and it's an hour and a half long class. It's like me, it was me standing there teaching the class live. So it was like being in my classroom. And the other day I was online with one of my students who just got the class, and she had her 11-day-old baby on with her. And she said, I watched your class and we're doing fantastic, and I learned so many things. And it was so great because I had never met her before, but she felt like she had met me because she took my class. And if you want to get the class, it's available to you. It's also available with the pump. So for the Even Flow Feeding pump, the classes are actually included for free. So when you get any of the Even Flow Feeding pumps, you get Simply Breastfeeding for free. So that's an added bonus right there, but take advantage of that resource.
Oh, this is so good. Ashley Johnson King said the LC at the hospital gave Daddy the job of pulling the chin down to make sure that they had a good latch.
Yep.
That's a good LC right there.
There you go. Making sure the lips are flanged, pulling the chin down.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to get a couple questions off of this now.
Yeah.
Preemie latch advice.
Preemie latch advice.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things, and this all depends on how preemie we're talking about. We're talking about NICU, we're talking about, you know, a few weeks early, are you home, are you nursing? The best thing that you could do with your preemie is skin to skin. You know, that's going to help the most to help your baby to latch, to have a better latch, to initiate breastfeeding. Preemies are very sleepy. Sometimes their mouths are small, so it can be difficult to latch. You just want to make sure that you're doing as much skin to skin as possible, and that you're doing frequent feedings. Because remember, look at what we're talking about. So this is a full-term baby's stomach. When we're talking about like little preemies, their stomachs are even smaller. What that means is they need to get that milk, but they can't take in a lot at one time. They need to eat frequently, which might be every hour in the beginning.
Oh, good.
Feedings.
Somebody's linking to your stuff. We'll link as well when we're done. I'll put a link to her website. You can find her on Facebook. I didn't tag her in the comment.
You didn't tag me in the
No,
comment?
I tagged April. I tagged her earlier on Facebook.
Okay.
No, I didn't. Listen, I'm a disaster. Shari Criso, all you do is look her up on Facebook. It's easy.
Definitely. And what I do is I do a lot of these questions in between as well, so I can answer some questions. A lot of times they're the same questions. And please don't get upset if I can't answer all of your questions. First of all, there's so many of them coming in. Second of all, I need to say this. Some of you have some really serious breastfeeding or lactation issues, and I'm going to tell you right there that you need to see somebody. Not everything can be handled online this way. This is a great thing that we now have online, you know, chats, that we do Facebook Q&As, that we do all of this stuff, and there's tons of resources on the internet. But that still doesn't take the place when you need a real provider or practitioner to look at you, to examine you. It's irresponsible for me or for anybody in my position to answer some of these questions when you actually really need to be seeing someone. So two things. One is, if I'm not answering your question, it's because we just have a lot of questions. Two is, if I'm telling you you need to see someone, it's because it's inappropriate to be answering online. You need help. And three is, if you do want to work with me personally and privately as a consultant, I do telephone and Skype consultations. Again, you could find that on my website, and you can become my patient.
Yeah. Let's talk about, do you need a new pump for each baby?
That's going to depend on the pump.
Yes.
Because, and how long in between too. What I would say is that, you know, there are open systems and then there are closed system pumps, and we've talked about this in the past.
That actually just popped up.
Okay.
Elise is asking somebody if they have an open or closed pump, and they
Yeah.
said, we don't know what you mean. So
okay.
let's bring up an open and closed system real
Let's
quick.
talk about that first, and then remind me what we were talking about.
Do you need a new pump for each child?
Because I'll forget in 2 minutes. Okay.
Me too.
So let's talk about open and closed systems. Okay. This is probably the #1 feature that I'm going to tell you. If you're looking and you're shopping around for pumps, or you're thinking about getting one from your insurance, or you're trying to decide which pump should I get, the #1 question you should be asking, in my opinion, about what features the pump has is it open or is it closed?
Yep.
If it's an open system, I wouldn't even consider it. If it's a closed system, then you can start looking at some of the other features. What that means is this. The pump, this is the flange. This goes up against your breast. The milk flows down into the bottle. The tube is connected to the motor that's sitting over here. This is sucking air very strongly in this direction to create a suction on the nipple so milk will go down into the bottle. This over here, where it's sucking air, has a barrier, okay? This barrier seals off the milk from entering into the tube, which then can grow bacteria, mold, and other nasties in here, okay, that can also get sucked back into the motor that can never be cleaned out, all right? An open system is basically just, I'm going to show you, plugged right behind here like this, okay, or here, however, depending on the pump, where it is, but there's no barrier, so milk can splash into this tubing. And on other occasions, if you do have a heavy letdown, like we were talking about with oversupply, if this little chamber gets filled too fast because the milk starts to pour, milk will actually get sucked into the tubing. You have to quickly shut off your pump so it doesn't get sucked into your pump. So the #1 thing, like I said, is I would look for a closed system pump. There are several on the market, but this is the Even Flow Feeding. This one does have a closed system. When I first started working with Even Flow Feeding, it was my first question. We're designing a new pump. Will you help us design the pump? Is it open or is it closed? It's a closed system pump. Okay, great. Let's look on to the next features. And so it was my first question. It should be your first question.
It's always the first thing I ever, at any of my speaking events,
always,
whenever I start going into like breastfeeding and pumping in bottles and stuff, it is the first thing I bring up. And it's amazing, because I did not know before I got into this, obviously, but I had no idea there was an open and a closed system, because the most popular things out there are all open systems. And there's no consumer knowledge.
Yes.
It's marketing, and you don't know what's going on.
And the reason, one of the reasons why people will say, well, why do they even make open system pumps? Okay, one of the reasons is that, you know, 15 years ago, when some of these personal use pumps started to really emerge on the market, that was the technology we had.
Yeah.
That was what was out there. That's how, you know, you don't need a very strong motor if there's not a barrier, because this is a vacuum system. If it's just sucking direct air, this motor doesn't need to be that strong to create that kind of suction. So that's what we had 15 years ago. Now we have better technology, we have better motors, we have better pumps, and we have the design for these closed systems that protect the tubing, that protect your milk. And so there is this is the newer...
When you know better, you do better.
When you know better, you do better. However, if you wanted to take a closed system pump, okay, an open system pump will not work with a closed system motor. So you'd have to change all the motors to change this.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you wanted to change this on an open system to a closed system, you'd have to then change all the motors, you'd have to change all of your hospital grade pumps, you'd have to change everything. So there is a reason why open systems exist, but it is not because it's a better technology.
You know what? Normally we do this for an hour, but there are still a lot of you watching. So we're going to go for a little bit longer tonight.
Going.
We have a lot of information to cover, and I just feel like doing it, because once I shut down, I'm going to shut down.
We take a break, it's over.
But I just think this is great, and I love doing this, and it's like, you know, thank you Facebook Live for having this video feature.
Absolutely.
Because it's fun. It's fun to just come hang out with her, but it's like, we get to be like this is awesome. We're giving you actual information instead of me on Periscope drinking wine and listening to Taylor Swift, which is great. But this is great to be able to like information, take it, digest it, rewatch it, share it with your friends, tag your friends. That is why we do this, is to get information out there to you.
Definitely.
I'm not always talking about cocktail recipes and whatnot, even though I like it. I actually like teaching people. That's why I do this.
That's why we both do it.
Yep.
I love it. I mean, like, thank you, Jamie, for having me on here, because this is like the best way for me to be able to share my experience and my knowledge with you, to be able to connect with all of you guys. And there is nothing that I enjoy or love more than to share the information that I have, and to make it just a little bit easier for you guys as you're transitioning, because this is one of the hardest times, and I know that. And I know there's so many people right now that are just sitting at home. You've got your little mobile device, your iPad, or whatever you're watching us on right now, and you're breastfeeding your baby, and it can be lonely.
And this might be all you have.
And this may be all you have. And right now you're sitting there and you're watching, and we're talking to you. And we know that you're out there. We're not just doing this for a show. We're doing this because we want to provide you with that support that we know is critical, especially right at this moment, and it's the best thing ever.
I love this. When I worked at the Birth Education Center, I've talked about this before, but they used to have lactation clinics several times a week where women would come in. It'd be about 2 or 3 hours long, and the women would come in like 2 or 3 days postpartum, sobbing, not knowing what they're doing. They're crying. They're like, oh my God, my boobs hurt and my kid is crying all night. I can't do this. I can't do this. And I would like go hug them and like walk them to the back room and let them like work with our IBCLC. And they would have a whole thing, because breastfeeding is private, but it's also communal. You learn breastfeeding by watching it be done.
Definitely.
Okay. So it is, even though it's natural, it is a learned process. So these women would enter this room, disasters. Or in their own mind, they were disasters, but it's normal. And they would come out 3 hours later, and they were like, I got this. And it was the best thing in the world. It was my favorite thing about working there, seeing the A to B. So I feel like we're helping give that, even though we can't see your reactions. We appreciate your comments.
We know you're out.
Honestly,
we know you're out there.
We know you like it.
We know you're out
so
there.
So that's why we do it.
We know it's helping. We know it's helping. And even if we're not getting to your question, because that was something that you thought of, we know you're giving you information that you may have never thought to ask. And that is actually my job, is to figure out, what do you need to know that you don't even know to ask me.
And you may not even comment or ask a question, but it may trigger something. You hear a response, you're like, that makes sense in my situation. Let me try it. Got it.
Never knew that. Never knew that. How many times do we hear that? Like, this is my third baby. I've never even heard this before. This is amazing, you know?
I'm just going to wipe my nose on camera now, because I don't care. You know, we've talked about balls tonight. We've talked about everything. Diva cups. It's like, we talk about vaginas and boobs on my page all the time. So every now and then we have to come back.
You get a pass.
I get a pass.
You get a total pass.
I get a pass.
You get a pass.
Okay.
And I'm sure there's a lot of snot out there right now.
There's so much.
They might not be wiping their own noses, but they're wiping somebody else's. So.
Oh, goodness.
You had a question that you were going to remind me of.
New pump for each baby.
Thank you. See, I couldn't remember the question, but I knew there was a question.
Yes.
Okay, so now that we've gone over open and closed systems, let's answer the question of, do you need another pump for each baby? If you have a closed system pump, then yes, I would say that you could use your motor again for your second baby. But what I would do is I would replace your parts. Okay, so I get new
Somebody
tubing.
asked about that too. When do you need to replace parts?
Okay, well, most of these parts, like the bottles and the flanges and all that, and as long as there's nothing wrong with them, I mean, on an open system, you might need to replace your tubing over and over again if you start to see anything growing or anything, if it's dirty. But typically with the first time you're using your pump, you don't need to replace these parts while you're pumping for the first one. I would say that the only parts that will need to be replaced as you're pumping are these little membranes, these little flappy things right here, they're very delicate and they're not meant to last the entire time that you're pumping, especially if you're pumping a lot. Those are little replacements that you'll have to replace so that you get good suction. It's actually one of the reasons why you might see your suction decreasing is if you need to replace those little membranes or valves. But typically your parts should last unless you boil them too much, which you shouldn't do. You warp them or you lose them or whatever. But when it comes to your second baby and the stuff's been hanging around for a couple years, you know, I would say I would get rid of it and start fresh. You can purchase these kits separately. You buy what's considered like a whole kit like that. And you use your motor from the last time, and you plug in and you use your motor. But usually, and if, as long as your pump has lasted, as long as your pump is still suctioning well and functioning well.
And they all have warranties too.
Yeah, but the warranties typically don't go beyond, you know, a year or two. So it's like, you know, typically you're going to be beyond that point by the time you have your second baby. But that doesn't mean the pump's not functioning. I would just be really sure that, and I think with insurance, you get a pump with each baby.
You do.
So take advantage of it because even if you think that it's fine, it may not be functioning well. Get another pump. Get a closed system, get one with independent speed and suction controls, and get one with flanges that fit.
Yeah.
Multiple flange sizes.
Multiple flange sizes.
This pump actually comes with 3 flange sizes, and now we just came out with 2 more even larger sizes that you can buy separately. So there's a lot of different sizing with this.
I mean, I know we've talked about flanges, not one size fit all, but we also need to discuss the fact that you will typically use different size flanges throughout your pumping and nursing time because these all change up.
Yeah, you might need one size like when you first come home or the first few weeks when your breasts are engorged and the first few months when you're exclusively breastfeeding without any solid foods. Then you get into the later half of the year, baby might be eating solids. Your breasts change significantly at that point. They can change a lot. And the flange size may not be the right size. So you need to have different sizes that you can keep messing around with, trying different ones, seeing which one fits. I do have a video on my Facebook wall that shows the actual flange sizing, where I'm actually showing the breast and the flange so you can see about proper fit for flange. That's really important because with the wrong flange size, you're going to have pain. Yep. Which, like we talked about before, comfort is like the #1 thing that's going to help your milk to let down. Yep. So if you're not comfortable, forget it. And the other thing is going to decrease the amount of milk that you can actually pump. So flange size is critically important, not just for like comfort, but for functionality of being able to get your milk out. And so, and you can't measure it.
Yeah.
You know, and one breast might need one size,
yeah.
and the other side might need a different size.
Again, balls. They're your lady balls up there. Come on. So
they're your man breasts.
They're your moobs.
They're your moobs.
They're my lower ovaries. They're your lower ovaries. That's what they are, technically.
They really are.
Scientifically,
That's really
they're your outer ova.
You started as us and turned into you.
It's very true. We will post Shari's website. It's mybabyexperts.com. What is also great now, Facebook has improved its search feature. So you can go onto our pages and there's a search bar and you type in hit and all the posts that have that we've written, all the posts that have that word you're looking for will show up.
Oh, that's great.
It's wonderful.
Awesome.
Because now I can go back and be like, I had a cookie recipe. I did whatever.
Yeah. Yep, and it'll come up. If you just start typing in Shari Criso, you'll see it come up with my credentials. That's my page where you'll see my videos, my giveaways, and things like that. And if you're into cloth diapers, that's what we're doing right now. Did you ever hear? Did your Jennifer do cloth diapering? Like
she did a little bit, but she just got a little overwhelmed with all the kids.
Yeah, there's so many of them. That's a lot of laundry. But yeah, cloth diapering is something that we're doing right now.
Yeah.
If you're into that.
Let's see here. We did that. Somebody wants to know about how to do a stuffy nose baby. Get a nose Frida and suck that baby out. I wish I had one right now. I would not make Shari nose Frida me. You cannot nose Frida yourself.
I love you,
but I wish I had someone that would. You know what? If anyone would nose Frida me, I would like give them a car seat.
You're gonna get so.
So yes, nose Frida. Nose Frida, every single parent out there should have a nose Frida for their kid. I know it sounds disgusting. Just hook it up. Done. You're not going to get snot and crap sucked back down there. Filters. It is hands down the best thing. Also, Shari doesn't like it when we bring this up, so we try to avoid it. Everyone asks about it, so I'm going to go there.
There we go. All
okay?
Right, yeah.
All of you ladies who are getting chewed apart, you got baby jaws biting at your titties.
I'm going to get comfortable for this one. I got my back buddy.
Listen, back buddy's the best. You are getting chomped on by your baby. They're teething. They're feeling a little aggressive. They got hurt. How do you help that?
All right. I hate this question. Why I hate this question is because there's not a lot you can do about it. Okay, I know, and it actually scares new moms. Talk about biting, but yeah, it's just one of those things that happens with breastfeeding. Their mouth is on your body. Their mouth starts to grow teeth. They will bite down. They're babies. They're going to do that. What I recommend is this. First of all, do not scream at them, because I just had somebody who that happened to on my page who she yelled and the baby went on a nursing strike and wouldn't breastfeed. Got very upset. So I would gently try to remove them. Each time they bite. Depends on how old the baby is too, because you see, like, a really small baby just doesn't know how to understand that that hurts.
Yeah.
Where a little bit of an older baby or child is going to understand that that's hurting mom, and removing them, taking them off. For a small baby, what I would recommend, and teething is going to cause that to happen as well too. They're in pain. They're trying to like gnaw on something, and so they're trying to use your nipple for that. I would say that giving them something to teeth on is going to help with that, so that they can chew on something else that's not attached to your body, not to your nipple. And the other thing too is for a very small baby or even older babies, when they're nursing, the more they're hanging off the nipple, so the farther away from your body they are, the easier they have of a time to clamp down, okay? So the best thing to do is to hold them tight and as close to the breast as possible, which kind of keeps the mouth open and makes it more impossible for them to close their mouth tightly onto your nipple. That makes sense. So you almost want to hold their head. You want to hold them really close if the biting is an issue for you. Other than that, I would say just, you know, it's usually just a phase, and taking them off will typically get them to stop doing it. Sticking your finger in their mouth, let them bite down on your finger instead.
Or get a hot dog.
Get a hot dog. No.
Any other things? Can dieting and exercise, because a few people did ask this, can dieting and exercise affect milk supply?
Can dieting and exercise affect milk supply? Yes. So sometimes over-exercising too soon can affect your milk supply. It can also change the taste of the milk. That's usually not a bother to the baby, but it can, depending on how much you're actually doing it. Again, you want to stay hydrated, but you don't want to overhydrate. Remember, drinking too much milk. Remember that whole thing? We talked about that. We're drinking too much water. Or over drinking water, forcing fluids can have an opposite effect of decreasing milk, but not drinking enough water can also decrease milk. So you don't want to get dehydrated, but you can't use over drinking as a method to increase milk supply. As far as your diet, you know, you want to eat, and you want to eat healthy, but what you eat really doesn't impact your milk. Again, we talked about this before. It's kind of like stress. If famines and not having enough food and all these other things really affected milk supply in a very big way, then we would have had a major issue as a human species throughout time.
True.
So, you know, I would say that you don't really need to diet when you're breastfeeding. You're burning lots of calories, and for some moms, they're going to lose all their baby weight just from breastfeeding alone.
Some moms don't.
And some moms are not going to.
Some moms gain.
And a lot of that has to do with hormones, or you're hungrier when you're breastfeeding, so you may be taking in some extra calories, so you're not really getting that like negative effect, and you're just kind of just staying the same or gaining a little, which is fine, and it all kind of works out in the end. It's not a one size fits all, but I would say that eating well, eating healthy, trying to eat, if more than anything, I would be trying to eat as much organic food as I could. I would try to be eating as many fruits and vegetables as I could, staying away from, if you're going to eat meats, to do it in a way that's more grass-fed, your eggs, all those things, because those are the things that are more important than trying to lose weight at this point.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about, I had teachers where I worked that were very open about, like, all these women who are told when they're pregnant, you can't eat spicy food, you can't eat this, you can't eat that. While you're nursing, you can't do it and whatever. But there are cultures all over this world where spicy is a way of life,
What
and whatever.
would they do in India?
What would they do?
I don't even...
The argument for keeping all of these flavors in your diet is it does affect your baby's taste buds.
Definitely.
If they're nursing and getting breast milk.
It's even before that.
Yeah.
It's actually happening in utero. Did you know that the amniotic fluid actually takes on this taste?
Really?
Yes. So eating the foods of the culture that your cultural foods will actually get your baby used to that in utero, and then continue on while you're breastfeeding to take on the taste of the milk, so that when they get to the age of eating solids, they're eating right off the table with you. They're not just eating, mac and cheese and chicken fingers and tasteless stuff. That's not what you want. You want to eat all these things, and spicy foods, and broccoli and vegetables and tomatoes, all these things that our people typically are like, don't eat any of it.
Eat it.
Eat all of it.
If it messes you up, don't eat it.
Yes.
But it's not going to mess your kid up.
Broccoli it doesn't go into your body and then come right into your milk.
No.
There is a processing that takes place. The only one that really does usually matter is the cow's milk protein.
Yeah. I just had a thought and I just totally forgot it. Oh, while we're talking about feeding kids, that's another really good argument for like baby-led weaning. Also,
yes.
Let them eat what you're eating. Get scissors, cut the food up super small, like get it done. Because I've been talking with a couple speech pathologists, and we are in a process now, because it's very convenient and it's great, these pouches where we are over pureeing our children, and because they get this smooth texture all the time, they're not using the musculature in their jaw and their mandible and their tongue, and it's really impeding and slowing down their linguistic ability.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
You got to keep all of this moving to learn to speak.
Yeah. They can eat what you're eating.
Yep.
They could just eat what you're eating. And they don't need to eat right away either. They can, if they look interested, go ahead and try. It's not like you have to be doing it. And then the other thing too is that you want to avoid cereals and white rice cereals and all those things. Those are typically the things that are recommended to be fed as first foods. That is a last food, not first food.
Somebody just said their baby's first solid was jambalaya, and I'm coming to your house.
That's so great.
I'm coming over because I need that pepper right now.
So great. But rice cereals, stay away from that.
Yeah.
Vegetables, avocados, best first food.
Avocados, there's good fat in it.
Oh, yeah.
So good. What age can they eat what we are eating?
Well, typically you want to wait for an exclusively breastfed baby, it's a different age than for a baby that may be drinking any formula at all, and there's a reason for this. So for an exclusively breastfed baby, we typically say do not introduce anything other than breast milk till the baby's at least 6 months old.
Yeah.
If your baby is drinking formula, or even a combination feeding of some breast milk, some formula, you can do it anywhere from 4 to 6 months of age. And that's because the baby's already having something else introduced into their system other than breast milk, and so the foods like the avocados and stuff is actually better for them than the formula that they're even drinking. So you could start a little bit sooner. The main reason why this happens is, and I don't think we've ever talked about this, but why do you have to wait the 6 months? Like, what physiologically is happening?
Yeah.
What physiologically is happening?
Let's talk about that.
Why do they recommend 6 months? And it's interesting, in the baby's gut or intestines is porous. So up until 6 months, things that the baby takes into their system can actually go into the bloodstream. Okay, so that it's a porous system where it can go into the bloodstream. You can develop food allergies because of that. Particles of whatever it is they're taking in can enter into the bloodstream and then create antibodies and food allergies and other things. Okay, at around 6 months, all of that gut closure occurs. So now their bodies and their systems are ready to take in other food. That opens systems. This is the one time when it
Okay, so this is actually fascinating to me right
Okay.
now. So if the stomach is porous,
Yes, the intestine.
the intestine, okay, for an exclusively breastfed child, does this mean that breast milk is going through the walls,
Yes.
helping build their antibodies,
Yes.
their immune system, all of
Yes.
this?
There's a
So
reason why it is.
formula, or any kind of supplementation, does that make the porous? Does it close it faster or no? Okay.
So they're getting that into their systems, and that's why we'll sometimes see babies reacting to whatever they're drinking.
Okay.
Okay. And so when the closure occurs at around 6 months, then they're ready for solid foods. We want that porous intestinal system because the breast milk should be able to enter in that way. Does that make sense?
That was good
We've
knowledge.
never talked about that, huh?
We've never talked about
See,
that.
we'll always find something new to talk
Look
about.
at that. I'm really congested. We've been on for about an hour and 20 minutes.
Oh, wow. That went fast.
Yeah, we'll do 10 more minutes.
Okay.
And then we'll log off.
This fire does feel good, though.
It really does feel good.
Yeah, you should.
I wish I had my one. I didn't pack a one piece for this trip. It's real sad. How do you tell the difference between nursing for comfort and nursing for nutrition?
It's very easy. You can either hear swallowing or you can't. Babies can breastfeed, and they do breastfeed for food and for comfort. And moms will know the difference because you can tell when a baby's really eating because you can hear that baby swallowing. They're sucking slower. They're gulping more. You can hear the milk, passing down into the stomach. You can hear that sound of the milk going down, and then they can suck on it like they would suck on a pacifier, those little gentle sucks, and they're just nursing. And that also is really good for the baby as well. The baby needs to suck, and I tell people this all the time. They're like, I don't want to breastfeed all the time, and I don't want to give my baby a pacifier, and I'm like, the baby needs to suck. So if there's only 3 things that they could suck on. They can suck on the pacifier, they could suck on your breast, or they can suck on your finger. One of them,
or your chin.
they can suck on your chin. They will suck on. They'll suck on. The truth is, they're going to suck on anything that comes near their mouth because they like to suck. Sucking is a reflex, and it's actually a life-sustaining reflex. Thank God that they love to suck. Thank God they know how to suck.
Yeah.
We don't really, under normal circumstances, we don't need to teach them how to suck. We just need to put something in their mouth, and they will suck on it. And that's just what a baby does. So, pacifiers, I think pacifiers are fine. I introduce them pretty early if the baby's breastfeeding well. I actually think that it's, we know that it's helpful in SIDS prevention, that pacifiers are good. We know that babies want to suck. And, if you're not going to be there with your baby at the breast 24/7 and you have a baby that really likes to suck, then pacifier is a great thing. And I actually think it's, people have mixed feelings about whether to suck their fingers or to suck a pacifier. Personally, my children had pacifiers because when I was ready for it to be done, I was able to take it away.
Yeah.
Can't do that with a finger. So
it's
a personal choice.
There you go.
But my best girlfriend when we were growing up sucked her thumb till she was 12.
Really?
Yeah, so we used to make fun of her because we'd have sleepover parties and she'd be, we'd fall asleep and she'd start sucking her thumb. She was 12. I know a lot of people would do that, so I always remembered that and decided.
You do you.
She's not on Facebook, so
Oh.
she's not going to see this.
I was like, she's writing.
She's not on Facebook.
She's like, why'd you
But she
call
would
me
laugh.
out?
She would laugh if she knew I was talking about her.
Any last questions real quick? I can't scroll up in the feed because it messes things up on my phone. Vitamins for EBF babies. They probably mean like vitamin D.
Yeah,
right?
that's the only one.
Yeah. Let's talk about that.
I don't recommend like multivitamins and everything else for exclusively breastfed babies. There's no need for it. It's the breast milk is really all they need. They don't need additional like the Vitafalls and all those other things. You don't need any of that when you're breastfeeding. The only one that I would recommend is vitamin D if your levels are low. So now if you're taking enough vitamin D, then your milk will have the proper amount of vitamin D in it. The problem is that most of the population has very low vitamin D levels.
Because we're not out in the sun enough.
The only way to really get adequate vitamin D, you can't get it from food. You have to take a supplement, and you have to take thousands of units of it, not hundreds of units. So you need enough to get your levels up over 50, which is the normal like healthy level, which most people are not even close to. And the really only way to do that is to do it through a supplement or to expose your body to sunlight, direct sunlight every single day, which most of us are not doing, especially in the winter time or whatever. Your levels are probably very low. This is extremely important to be watching when you're pregnant. New studies that just came out talk about the link to low vitamin D and the risk of preeclampsia, preterm delivery, and other things. And so it's actually one of the things that's actually being vitamin D testing, blood testing, which it's a very simple. I actually just had my vitamin D levels tested. It's part of your blood test. It should be part of your initial prenatal screening. And if your physician's not doing that, I would recommend that during your pregnancy you request to have your vitamin D levels checked. And then you want to make sure that your vitamin D level is above 50. And doing that during pregnancy can help to have a healthier pregnancy. You should have your vitamin D levels up over 50 at least while you're breastfeeding to get enough into the milk. And if not, then your baby needs vitamin D supplements.
Okay. Somebody brought up something we've actually never really talked about on here. Do we feel like discussing what is nipple confusion and what it is not?
So there's the difference between nipple confusion and preference. Let's distinguish between those two. You know, this whole idea that the baby's going to get confused. What they're talking about is, you know, introducing an artificial nipple to a breastfed baby can cause the baby to become confused, not know how to suck at the breast, and not be able to breastfeed. What I see more is that babies typically that are able to breastfeed, and once breastfeeding has been established, and I'm not talking 6 weeks, I'm talking like a week, 2 weeks into it. Like it can happen very quickly. The milk is in, the baby's breastfeeding, everything's going well. I don't see this nipple confusion that people are talking about and warning against by introducing the baby to a bottle at that point or even a pacifier. Babies are able to take a bottle and also breastfeed. They know the difference and they're able to do both. What winds up happening is I see more nipple preference. So you take a baby that is very young, having difficulty breastfeeding, or the milk hasn't come in yet, and you put an artificial nipple or a bottle in the baby's mouth, the baby will develop a preference for that and not want to breastfeed.
Well, it's just like with nipple flow situation.
Exactly.
When you go up in faster nipple flow, they get used to this, and your nipple flow doesn't change.
Yep.
So they are used to fast. Regular old mama over here, the baby's got to fight too much, and they just like, nah, I'm not into it.
Yep. But the other thing that happens too, it happens on the flip side, which is then you have a baby who loves to breastfeed. You follow the lactation consultant or the advice that you read, or someone says to you, wait 6 weeks, don't introduce any bottles, they'll get nipple confusion. You wait 6 weeks before you introduce a baby to a bottle, to a breastfed baby, and they're like, I don't want that. And we hear that all the time. We get questions all the time about, how do I get my baby to take a bottle? Well, if you wait that long, the baby, it's not that they're confused and they don't want to take it. They have a preference now for the breast and refuse to take the bottle. So both can happen in both directions. And what it comes down to is, my opinion is, as soon as your baby is well-established breastfeeding, whether that's a week into it, 2 weeks into it, start introducing the bottle slowly. In my class that we were talking about earlier, the Simply Breastfeeding, I have a whole chapter in that class. It's just about how to introduce your baby to a bottle, exactly how to do it. I have a specific way and technique to do it so that it does not cause this nipple preference or rejection of the breast, but also prevents that bottle rejection that occurs when you're trying to go back to work and now you don't know what to do.
Yeah. So we have 1 minute and a half left until Facebook Live shuts off, because it allows you to go for an hour and a half in each broadcast segment. So I just want to say thank you all for hanging out and putting up with this snotty mess. Hopefully I get better in a couple days. It's just a lot of travel and bad weather and bad climates. Thank you, Shari, for doing this. This is wonderful.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Evenflow, for sponsoring these so we can do this all year for you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're wonderful. Thank Evenflow. Go to their Facebook wall and thank them. Go to her Facebook wall and follow her. We are creating conversation that needs to be had. So thank you all.
Can I say thank you to
Yeah,
you?
you sure.
I want to say thank you to Jamie because if it wasn't for Jamie, none of this would be possible. And all of you guys out there, I'm sure want to thank Jamie, and I want to thank Jamie for creating such an amazing community.
I love
because your moms and your people are amazing, and it's such a pleasure for me to be able to.
It's an educated group. It's an educated and sassy group because you'll let me talk about balls. So everyone
and moves.
And moves. Everyone have a good night. I will pick the winner of the pump and post that on this thread tomorrow. It is time to go. So long, farewell.